What if the reason you've been feeling stuck isn't because you're confused, but because there's been two different versions of you fighting for the mic? Gemini energy at its core is not just about curiosity and communication, it's about fragmentation, the mask you wear to adapt, the voice you use to avoid, the thoughts that keep you spinning just fast enough to outrun the truth. Every Gemini house holds the story of where you've split yourself in two, where you got good at shapeshifting to survive instead of anchoring into who you really are. In this video, we're going house by house through Gemini's placement to explore the wound behind your words, the hidden duality shaping your decisions, and what it actually takes to stop performing and start integrating. So grab your birth chart, find the house or houses where Gemini sits, and let's dive in.
Gemini in the first house means you learn to become whoever you needed to be in the moment. Fast, adaptable, clever, and changeable. Your identity was shaped through observation, curiosity, and code switching. You are perceptive to your environment and quick to mirror what's expected. But over time, this talent becomes a mask that hides your true essence. This placement creates a split between the you that everyone sees and the you that's still trying to figure out who you really are beneath all the versions you've performed. You might be everyone's favorite conversationalist, but deep down, you may wonder, who am I when no one is watching? Gemini is the sign of duality, and in the first house, the house of identity, it can lead to a constant toggling between roles, moods, tones, and personalities. Your mind moves so fast, your image updates constantly. But this can come at a cost. Never feeling fully settled in your skin. Your soul came here to learn how to integrate all versions of you, to stop shape-shifting for connection and start standing in your truth, even when it's messy, incomplete, or contradicts what people expect. With this placement, your biggest challenge isn't communication, it's clarity. It's knowing what parts of you are real and what parts were just learned for survival. Some common blocks with this placement is 1, performing your personality instead of embodying it. You're used to switching tones, styles, and opinions depending on who you're around. So it can be hard to tell where the mask ends and the real you begins. There's also the issue with over-identifying with your intellect. You lead with your thoughts, words, and ideas, but sometimes avoid the emotional core underneath. So you may use humor, logic, or distraction to avoid vulnerability. Another challenge is chronic identity shapeshifting. You're not fake, you're adaptive. But if you're constantly switching roles, friend, lover, expert, rebel, it can leave you feeling like you don't actually know who you are at your center. Another is confusing attention with connection. You are charismatic and engaging, but you may struggle to feel truly seen. Sometimes you perform so well that people fall in love with the version of you that isn't fully real. Gemini in the first often creates a life that looks dynamic and interesting on the outside, but feels disjointed internally. So you may notice that you reinvent yourself constantly. New clothes, new hairstyles, new interests, new jobs, new goals. You're always trying on different versions of self. Reinvention is your comfort zone, but rootedness feels foreign. You may also be known for your voice, but not your depth. People might see you as witty, sharp, or entertaining, but you may feel like no one really gets you beyond the surface. You may also find that you doubt your decisions because your self-image is unstable. When your sense of self is always shifting, it's hard to commit to choices, to partners, to a path, because the version of you that made the choice is always changing. You may also find that you intellectualize your emotions. You're great at describing what you feel, but not necessarily being with those feelings. Your mind races to find meaning before your heart can fully land. Gemini in the first house isn't here to erase your duality. It's here to help you integrate it, to teach you that you're allowed to be multifaceted without being fragmented. Healing begins when you stop shifting to be understood and start expressing yourself to be seen. The first step to achieving this is to choose presence over persona. Practice noticing when you're slipping into a version of yourself that's meant to impress, appease, or entertain. Pause, breathe, and ask, what does the real me want to say right now? Next is to create a safe space for self-exploration. Journal without editing. Move without performing. Let yourself express without an audience. You're not here to constantly broadcast. You're here to discover. Next is to let contradictions coexist. You don't have to be consistent to be authentic. You're allowed to change your mind, to evolve, to hold multiple truths. Integration doesn't mean picking one side. It means holding them all with grace. Next is to stop translating yourself for approval. You don't have to dumb down, over-explain, or reword your truth to be palatable. Let people stretch to meet you for once. Next is to feel before you frame it. Before you talk about what you're going through, sit with it. Don't rush to make sense of it all. Let your emotions arrive before your mind gives them a label. And finally, define yourself on your own terms. Who are you outside of how others see you? Start building an identity based on how you feel when you're alone, not just how you're received in a room. A great affirmation for your Gemini-ruled first house is, I no longer perform to be accepted. I express to be known. I trust that my true self is enough, even when I'm still figuring out who that is. This is your cosmic check-in. Drop your thoughts and takeaways in the comments. And of course, tap that like button, share the vibes, and subscribe so the stars always find you. And if you're ready to stop outsourcing your worth and finally come home to yourself, my Venus Activation Journal guides you through your Venus sign and house so you can rewire how you see and love yourself. So check it out below in the description box. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for listening. Gemini in the second house means you've been taught, consciously or unconsciously, that your worth is tied to your output. Not just what you do, but how well you can explain it, package it, present it. This is the house of self-worth, income, and values. And when Gemini lives here, it's not just about making money with your mind. It's about proving your value through performance. You likely learned early on that being clever, helpful, impressive, or entertaining was how to earn love, safety, or attention. So you adapted. You kept producing. You kept talking. You kept learning. You stayed busy because silence started to feel like worthlessness. But over time, this creates a split, a double life between the inner self that's exhausted and the outer self that's still smiling, still producing, still being valuable. This placement is here to help you remember your value doesn't need to be justified. Gemini in the second is here to learn that self-worth is inherent, not something you barter for through productivity, knowledge, or likability. When your sense of value is built on external validation and mental output, several patterns can show up that keep you stuck in a loop of proving. So this is about equating worth with words. So you may feel like if you're not explaining, educating, or sharing something useful, you don't have value in the room. There's also productivity addiction. Rest can feel terrifying, like you're fading into nothingness if you're not doing something that earns your worth. There's also value chameleon. You adapt your values or personality based on who you're with. You know how to be what others need, but do you know what you actually want? There's also imposter syndrome on repeat. You may constantly doubt your expertise or second guess your skills, even when others see your brilliance. There's also overcompensation through busyness. You multitask to feel useful, but underneath it all, there's a quiet fear. What am I worth when I stop moving? This programming runs deep. So if you have Gemini in the second house, You may find that even your financial life reflects this fragmented sense of worth. So you may find that you do a little of everything, yet still feel unfulfilled. You are multi-talented, but your energy is spread thin across projects, gigs, or interests. No matter how much you do, you still feel like it's not enough. You may also feel like money feels tied to self-expression. So you may make income through your voice, ideas, communication, or content, but it can be draining when it's coming from a place of proving rather than expressing. You may also find that you downplay your own needs. So you may struggle to articulate what you really want because you're so focused on meeting everyone else's expectations or needs. You may also fear being found out. You may carry a fear that you're just good at sounding like you know what you're doing. Deep down, you may feel disconnected from your own mastery. You may also attach to labels and identities. Because you fear being seen as scattered or inconsistent, you over-identify with certain roles, such as teacher, coach, guide, or creative, just to feel secure. The real journey with Gemini in the second isn't about becoming more valuable. It's about realizing you always were. This healing is about learning to express from truth, not from fear of inadequacy. It's about building a stable inner sense of self-worth that doesn't shift with your performance, your followers, your ideas, or your income. The first step to achieving this is to redefine worth as stillness, not motion. Start noticing the stories you tell yourself when you're not being productive. Can you feel valuable doing nothing? That's the work. Next is to express without needing a response. Journal, voice note, or speak aloud just for you. Not everything you say needs an audience, a purpose, or a platform. Next is to anchor your identity in what feels true, not what sounds good. Pay attention to the values you've always been saying you hold, and check if your life actually aligns. Begin reclaiming your real voice, not the curated one. Next is to detach self-worth from skill mastery. Just because you're not perfect at something doesn't mean you don't deserve recognition or success. You're allowed to grow in public. Next is to explore your values in layers. Make a list of your core values, and for each one, ask yourself, is this mine? Or was I praised for this and assumed it was me? Start shedding values that don't come from the soul. And finally, stop monetizing every gift. You don't have to turn every talent into a side hustle. You're allowed to enjoy, create, or communicate simply because it brings you joy, not because it earns you praise or profit. A great affirmation for your Gemini ruled second house is, I'm not here to earn my worth. I'm here to remember it. My voice matters, even when it's quiet. My value exists, even when I'm still. Okay, your turn. Be sure to chat with me in the comments and let me know what resonated with you. And be sure to give this video a thumbs up, share it with your day ones, and subscribe so the universe keeps us synced. And you don't have to keep guessing who you are. My As Above, So Within guided journal helps you get real about what you want and what you're here for. So be sure to grab it below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for listening. Gemini in the third house is the storyteller of your inner world. But not all stories are told in truth. Sometimes they're told for survival. This placement often comes from a childhood where words were tools used to diffuse tension, shift moods, or adapt quickly to other people's expectations. You learned early that communication wasn't just about sharing, it was about staying safe. This created a split between your authentic voice that holds your raw truth and the adaptive voice that performs based on what will be best received. Over time, that gap can grow into a psychological double life. One version of you that others hear, and one version of you that never gets spoken out loud. But Gemini in the third isn't here to make you more clever. It's here to help you reclaim honest self-expression. You're being asked to dissolve the mask your mind has built and to speak from the place that doesn't need to convince or impress. Just be real. When your communication style has been shaped by emotional adaptation, it can lead to patterns that feel safe but disconnect you from your truth. One of the blocks with this placement is over-explaining, equating emotional buffering. You may talk about your feelings, intellectualizing your truth so it's more palatable or less confrontational. This also brings two voices, but one mouth. There's what you say, and then there's what you actually mean. The split becomes habitual. You rehearse honesty, but rarely feel heard. Another challenge is your mind doesn't rest. The internal dialogue is always running, debating, editing, analyzing. Silence doesn't feel peaceful. It feels unfinished. Another challenge is validation through verbal approval. So you may crave acknowledgement for how well you express yourself, tying your intelligence or likability to the way you communicate rather than the truth behind your words. You may also dodge depth with wit. So humor, quick thinking, or cleverness becomes shields to avoid deeper emotional intimacy. Now, this energy doesn't just shape how you communicate. It shapes the way you think about yourself and others. So you may experience mental multitasking as a way of life. You process information quickly, but rarely slow down to integrate. So ideas become distractions instead of direction. You may also find that you use communication as camouflage. You change how you speak depending on who you're with, code switching so automatically that you forget what your real voice sounds like. You may also experience struggles with consistency. You have so many ideas, interests, and directions that your voice feels scattered. You may start and stop creative projects often, unsure which version of you to commit to. You may also experience emotional disconnect when speaking. You can speak fluently about thoughts, facts, or other people's emotions, but struggle to name or express your own in the moment. Also, talking may be an avoidance mechanism. So, when something hurts or feels off, you may respond by thinking or talking more, rather than slowing down to feel or listen inward. Gemini in the third isn't just about communication, it's about integration. You are not here to perform your truth, you're here to live it. This placement asks you to align your inner dialogue with your outer voice and give language to the parts of you that have been muted. The first step to achieving this is to write what you don't say. Create a private space to express your thoughts and truths you usually edit out. Let your journal, notes app, or voice memos hold the raw, unrehearsed version of you. Next is to talk to yourself with curiosity, not critique. Replace inner monologues of pressure and perfection with compassionate inquiry. Instead of, why did I say that? Try, what part of me needed to say that? Next is to speak even when it feels messy. Let conversations be imperfect. Practice naming your feelings even if they come out clunky. Your truth isn't meant to be polished. It's meant to be present. Next is to notice when you're switching selves. Pay attention to the shift in your voice, tone, or topics around different people. Instead of judging it, ask, what does this version of me feel safest sharing? That's where healing begins. Next is to make room for pauses. You don't always have to feel the silence. Practice leaving space in conversations, in your own mind, and in your creative process. Trust that what's real will still rise, even without performance. And finally, create from authenticity, not just skill. Let your voice come from your experience, not just your intellect. Whether it's writing, speaking, or teaching, share what's true, not just what's impressive. A great affirmation for your Gemini-ruled third house is, I am safe to speak, even when my voice shakes. My truth does not need permission, perfection, or applause. It only needs me. Your astro confessions are welcome. Tell me what resonated most below. And of course, if this lit you up, hit like, share it with your friends, and subscribe for your next download. And your chart already holds the answers. My As Above, So Within guided journal helps you pull them out and put them on paper so you can finally see who you're becoming. So be sure to check it out below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for listening. Gemini in the fourth house often carries the imprint of a home that taught you to speak well, but not feel deeply. So when life slows down, your nervous system speeds up. When things get quiet, your thoughts get louder. This placement doesn't just create a busy mind. It creates a deep inner craving to finally feel safe being still, feeling fully, and not having to translate your emotions into words just to validate them. The fourth house is the root chakra of your chart. It holds your childhood programming, your definition of safety, and your unconscious beliefs about emotional belonging. When Gemini lives here, your inner child was likely trained to intellectualize emotion. You learned that if you could explain it, you could control it. But that coping strategy kept you from truly feeling it. This energy is a portal to emotional integration. You are here to rewrite the story of home, not as a place where you had to think quickly to stay connected, but as a sanctuary where your unspoken feelings are finally safe to land. When emotional safety gets replaced with mental agility, it can create a home within yourself that feels more like a classroom than a refuge. So you may notice hyper-awareness of mood shifts. You learned to read the emotional temperature of others quickly. So you might still scan rooms at home or in relationships for cues to adjust your behavior. You may also find that safety equals staying in control of the narrative. So you may feel the need to explain your past, justify your emotions, or make sense of your pain instead of just letting it be witnessed. You may also be emotionally guarded through wit or words. So you often turn pain into a joke or story before even letting yourself cry. You're fluent in avoidance, masked as insight. You may also feel discomfort in stillness or silence. Quiet time at home might make you feel restless or anxious. So you may fill the space with stimulation, TV, podcast, text, not realizing it's an old trauma response to silence. You may also experience confusion around what you really feel. Because you've spent so long talking about your emotions rather than feeling them, it's hard to know what's real versus what's rehearsed. This placement creates a childhood template that can ripple into your adult experience of home, family, and emotional intimacy. Some ways this might manifest includes you may keep changing homes or redecorating. Gemini is a mutable sign, And in the fourth house, it can create a restless relationship with physical spaces. You may crave a home that finally feels like you, but struggle to stay long enough to create it. You may also find that you intellectualize your childhood. You might explain your upbringing in great detail, but feel oddly numb or disassociated from the emotional reality of it. You may also find that you overthink your family role. So, whether it's as a child, partner, or parent, you may constantly question, analyze, or doubt how well you're showing up in your family identity. You may also equate a busy house with a safe house. So you might create a lifestyle where your home is always full of conversation, background noise, or stimulation, not realizing that it's a way to avoid emotional stillness. You may also have trouble receiving care without earning it. So you may feel like you need to say the right thing, be helpful, or entertain to be worthy of love. Just being may feel too vulnerable. Gemini in the fourth house teaches that mental stimulation is not a substitute for emotional safety. You don't have to keep thinking in order to stay safe. You are allowed to feel. Now, to begin to heal this placement, the first step is to create a sanctuary for stillness. Build a space in your home that invites quiet reflection. Light a candle, turn off notifications, and just sit. Let your nervous system relearn that silence doesn't equal danger. Next is to speak to your inner child daily. Use your gift of language to reconnect with your younger self. Journal letters to them. Record voice memos or write dialogues. And ask, what did you need to hear but never got to say? Next is to release the need to explain everything. When emotions rise, resist the urge to analyze them right away. Instead, sit with the raw feeling. Let your tears, your breathing, or your body speak first. Your mind can follow later. Next is to track when you switch into performance mode at home. Notice when you shift into on mode, talking to entertain, explain, or impress. Then pause and ask, what part of me feels unsafe just being? Next is to let home be a place of receiving, not just giving. Practice letting others care for you without feeling the need to reciprocate immediately. You don't have to earn your rest, your comfort, or your support. And finally, redefine what safe feels like. Use affirmations, visualizations, and breath work to train your body to associate calm, quiet, and solitude with nourishment, not anxiety. A great affirmation for your Gemini-ruled fourth house is, I am safe in stillness. My truth is welcome, even when it's wordless. I create a home within myself that honors every feeling. No translation needed. Let's make this a chart therapy session and share your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, love on this video with a like, spread the magic, and subscribe so the universe keeps sending you these vibes. And your chart is a mirror, and my As Above, So Within guided journal helps you look into it deeply. With over 100 prompts, this 88-page journal will help you uncover what you want, what you're here for, and who you're becoming. You can find the link for it below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for listening. Gemini in the 5th house isn't just about being fun, witty, or flirtatious. It's about the fragmented relationship you have with your own creativity, self-expression, and sense of joy. This placement speaks to the parts of you that learn to perform instead of play. It's the mask of charm worn to survive environments that didn't nurture your inner child's raw, unfiltered light. Your mind became your main playground. You intellectualized feelings before you felt them. You entertained others to avoid confronting how rarely you felt truly seen. And somewhere along the way, your sense of self-worth became entangled with your ability to impress, entertain, or adapt to what others found desirable. At its highest frequency, Gemini in the 5th house is a storyteller of the soul, someone who channels joy, pain, and truth through words, movement, laughter, or art. But first, you must unlearn the pressure to always be on and remember what it feels like to create, express, and love simply for the sake of it, not for approval. When this energy is unintegrated, you might use humor or performance to deflect vulnerability. You may constantly seek stimulation or attention as a substitute for emotional safety. You may struggle to feel creatively confident unless receiving external validation. You might overanalyze romantic connections instead of experiencing them fully. You may feel disconnected from your inner child, especially when it comes to play or spontaneity. And you might also confuse creativity with productivity, feeling guilty for creating without a point. Gemini in the 5th house often reflects a childhood where creativity came with conditions, or where you were praised for being smart, clever, or entertaining rather than authentically you. So as an adult, you might confuse performing with expressing and forget how to do something just because it feels good. This placement doesn't just impact how you date or create. It shapes how you allow joy to live in your body. And this energy can show up in a few different ways. One being where you are attracting romantic partners who are charming, emotionally unavailable, or always keeping it light. Another is feeling most comfortable in flirty or surface level connections that don't require deep emotional exposure. Overthinking your creative gifts and abandoning projects before they can bloom is another, as well as needing to be the funny one or the lighthearted one, even when you're internally struggling. You may also find that you oscillate between creative hyperdrive and total block because you're chasing feedback instead of flow. And you may also feel disconnected from your sensuality unless it's part of a performance or a game. Gemini in the fifth house heals when you stop performing your happiness and start embodying it. This isn't about becoming more creative. It's about becoming more honest about what actually brings you life when no one is watching. The path to healing here is playful, yes, but it's also radical because reclaiming your voice, your desires, and your right to be fully expressed isn't frivolous. It's your soul remembering who it was before it needed to impress anyone. The first step to achieving this is to create without a purpose. Let yourself make things that go nowhere. Draw badly. Write nonsense. Sing off key. Paint with your fingers. The goal isn't mastery, it's freedom. You've learned to commodify your expression. It's time to remember the magic of creating simply because it brings you joy. Next is to stop playing the fun one. If your identity has been wrapped in being the light, clever, entertaining one, it's safe now to be messy, moody, or melancholic. You don't owe anyone a performance. Your wholeness is lovable. Let others meet all of you, not just the version that knows how to keep things interesting. Next is to reconnect with your inner child's voice. What did you love doing before anyone told you to be good at it? What stories did you tell yourself when you were alone in your room? Return to that. Journal in their voice. Let them guide you back to the kind of joy that doesn't ask for applause. Next is to explore play as a spiritual practice. Play isn't a waste of time. It's medicine. Practice play that isn't intellectualized or strategic. Do something ridiculous, something that makes no sense. Get silly. Get spontaneous. Let your body, not your mind, lead. This is where creativity becomes healing. Next is to give yourself the attention you crave. You don't need to wait for a stage to feel seen. Be the witness you've always wanted. Read your own poetry out loud to yourself. Watch your old videos. Tell yourself you're proud. When your validation becomes internal, your expression becomes unstoppable. And finally, date yourself differently. Your fifth house isn't just about art. It's about romance. Make love to your own mind. Plan an afternoon date with your favorite book, dance playlist, or creative experiment. Practice seducing your own curiosity until you remember how deeply magnetic you already are. A great affirmation for your Gemini-ruled fifth house is, my joy is sacred. My voice is magnetic, and my expression doesn't need to be perfect to be powerful. I release the need to perform, and I choose to play, create, and speak with freedom. I am the source of my own light. Be sure to let me know what part hit home for you in the comments below. And of course, if this lit you up, hit like, share it with your soul squad, and subscribe so you never miss the next download. And if you're ready to stop outsourcing your worth and finally come home to yourself, my Venus Activation Journal guides you through your Venus sign and house so you can rewire how you see and love yourself. So check it out below. The links are in the description. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for listening. Gemini in the sixth house creates a mind that constantly tracks what needs fixing, improving, or optimizing. But underneath the endless checklist and multitasking lies a deeper wound, a fear of being irrelevant unless you're useful. This placement often reflects a childhood where being smart, quick, or helpful was rewarded more than being emotionally present. You learn to intellectualize your worth and equate your value with what you could do for others. The sixth house rules routines, rituals, and the nervous system. So, with Gemini here, your nervous system may have been trained to ride on overdrive, to keep moving, doing, fixing, learning, without ever stopping to ask, is this actually working for me? Now, this isn't just about being busy. This is about the deeper fragmentation of feeling disconnected from your body while living entirely in your head. Gemini in the sixth house carries the sacred task of bringing the mind back into service of the body, not in domination over it. You're here to learn that your brilliance doesn't have to come at the cost of your well-being. Your intelligence is amplified when it's anchored in presence. This placement comes with internal pressure to do it all perfectly, fast, efficiently, and without showing struggle. It's the inner voice that turns productivity into punishment. With this placement comes a few blocks. One of them being hyperactive self-criticism. You may obsess over minor mistakes or inconsistencies, as if your worth hinges on your ability to never drop the ball. Every undone task becomes an internal referendum on your competence. Another challenge is overthinking the routine. So you might jump from one perfect system, diet, or routine to the next, always searching for the magic structure that will finally bring peace, but rarely sticking to any long enough to build real grounding. Another is intellectualizing health. It's easy to know about wellness, boundaries, or work-life balance, but hard to actually embody them. Gemini in the sixth can default to analyzing rather than experiencing healing. And another is burnout from mental multitasking. You may constantly toggle between projects, thoughts, or responsibilities, rarely allowing full focus or rest. It's as if your nervous system doesn't know how to power down. Because this energy is so wrapped up in your day-to-day habits, it tends to show up in sneaky, subtle ways that slowly wear you down. So you may treat work like a game of mental gymnastics. You're constantly solving puzzles, managing multiple streams of input, or seeking stimulation just to feel alive in your job, even if it's draining you. You may find that you avoid rest because your mind races when you stop. Stillness feels unsafe. You might always need a podcast on, a task list nearby, or some productive goal to chase, even when your body is begging for stillness. You may find that you feel guilt when you're not being helpful or learning. Downtime can feel wasteful unless it's intellectually enriching. So you may struggle to justify joy if it's not also somehow productive. And you may also find that you ping pong between multiple health routines. One week it's breath work. The next week it's herbalism. The week after that, it's micro tracking your macros. So you may chase optimization over true healing. Gemini in the 6th house isn't here to make you a productivity machine. It's here to awaken mindful, heart-connected service. You're here to bring curiosity, adaptability, and communication into service of healing. But first, you have to turn those tools inward. The first step to achieving this is to reclaim your inner narrator. Become conscious of the voice that critiques you while you work. Is it your voice or a parent, teacher, or societal script? Rewrite it. Replace judgment with curiosity. Let your thoughts guide your energy, not drain it. Next is to choose ritual over routine. Instead of rigid structures that feel like punishment, build rituals that restore you. Let your routines be conversations between your body and your mind, not mandates from your inner critic. Next is to let boredom be the breakthrough. You don't have to entertain yourself to earn rest. Let yourself do nothing and witness what arises. Your creativity will return when your nervous system finally exhales. Next is to speak to your body like it's sacred. Every ache, craving, or fatigue isn't a failure. It's a message. Practice asking, what do I need right now? Rather than, how do I fix this? Next is to simplify to reconnect. Complexity often becomes a distraction. Try limiting your routines to a few core practices that truly nourish you. Let simplicity become the space where healing grows. And finally, decenter usefulness as your identity. You are not your productivity. You are not your output. Practice showing up in spaces without needing to prove your value. Let love in even when you're not performing. A great affirmation for your Gemini-ruled 6th house is, I release the need to prove myself through what I do. My presence is enough. I trust in the healing power of simplicity, and I anchor my mind in love, not pressure. Okay, your turn. Be sure to chat with me in the comments and let me know what resonated with you. And of course, give this video a thumbs up, pass it to your astrology besties, and subscribe for more cosmic truths. And your chart already holds the answers. My As Above, So Within guided journal helps you pull them out and put them on paper so you can finally see who you're becoming. So be sure to check it out. The links are in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for listening. Gemini in the seventh house creates a dynamic, curious, and often intellectually charged approach to relationships. But beneath the charm, cleverness, and connection is a deeper energetic program: the fear of choosing the wrong person, and the subconscious belief that love must keep you mentally stimulated in order to stay safe. This placement often reflects a childhood where relationships were unstable, inconsistent, or shaped by contradiction. You may have watched caregivers wear masks, saying one thing while doing another, or felt like you had to perform in relationships to be accepted. Over time, this can split your sense of self. Part of you wants deep connection, and the other part stays slightly detached, analyzing every interaction to protect your heart. Gemini here can make you hyper aware of your relational image, crafting personas, adjusting your voice, or using wit to maintain closeness without fully surrendering. But this isn't just fear of intimacy. It's fear of disappearing inside of it. You're here to learn that you don't have to split yourself in two to be loved. The relationship you truly desire begins when you stop editing yourself to be understood and start embracing the wholeness of your truth, even if it shakes things up. This energy can create patterns that feel like connection, but are actually ways to avoid deeper emotional exposure. So you may feel blocks show up in a few different ways. One is the fear of choosing wrong. So you may delay commitment, keep multiple options open, or mentally interview partners long after the relationship begins, always wondering if someone else might be a better fit. Another is over-intellectualizing love. So you might analyze your relationships to death, trying to logic your way into safety instead of allowing yourself to feel fully. Emotional messiness can feel like a threat to clarity. Another is performing connection instead of living it. So you may fall into roles of being the funny one, the understanding one, the low maintenance one, at the expense of your emotional truth. And you may also find that you avoid emotional conflict. So you might retreat into sarcasm, distraction, or conversation detours when things get too vulnerable, using wit or words to create distance. This placement doesn't always scream its wounds. It shows up in patterns that look like charm, logic, or just needing space. But underneath, it can manifest in ways such as chronically second-guessing your partner or relationship status. So even when things are going well, part of you may keep mentally checking out of the relationship, wondering what else is possible. You may feel bored or emotionally numb after the honeymoon phase. So once the mental stimulation wears off, you may confuse emotional depth with emotional dullness and pull away instead of diving deeper. You may find that you create relationships based on compatibility over vulnerability. So you might choose people who make sense on paper, but don't touch your soul, then wonder why it still feels lonely. You may also find that you adapt your personality in different relationships. So you may code switch depending on the person, subtly changing your tone, opinions, or priorities to keep things smooth, but feeling unanchored over time. Gemini in the 7th doesn't just ask you to find your voice. It asks you to fall in love with your own mind. Healing begins when you stop outsourcing clarity to others and start building emotional intimacy with yourself. The first step to achieving this is to ground your voice in your values. You don't have to say the right thing. You just have to say the real thing. Start practicing radical honesty with yourself. What do you want? What beliefs are truly yours? And which ones were picked up just to be agreeable? Next is to slow down and feel. You already know how to think about your relationships. Now it's time to feel them. Create sacred space to journal about your emotions before you explain them away. Let your heart speak without your mind editing the story. Next is to create a safe inner dialogue. Your thoughts can be your sanctuary or your place of sabotage. Practice self-talk that is kind, curious, and non-judgmental. You don't need all the answers. You just need to hold space for your evolving truth. Next is to stop performing relational intelligence. You don't have to be the cool, woke, or understanding partner all the time. Let yourself be messy. Speak up when something hurts. Ask for clarity when you're confused. Your emotional needs are just as valid as your intellectual ones. Next is to call back the hidden you. Write a letter to the parts of you you've muted in relationships. The awkward, emotional, reactive, or sensitive parts. Apologize to them. Reclaim them. Integrate them into your identity so that love doesn't require self-abandonment. And finally, rewire your inner voice first. You don't need to process every conversation out loud. Start tuning into the inner dialogue between your thoughts and your feelings. Practice asking, what emotion is hiding beneath this idea, before rushing to a solution. A great affirmation for your Gemini-ruled 7th house is, I honor my truth even when it trembles. I do not perform connection. I become it. My love is sacred, curious, and real. Be sure to drop your wow, this is me moment in the comments. I read them all. And of course, love on this video with a like, spread the magic, and subscribe so the universe keeps sending you these vibes. And if you're tired of repeating old patterns, my Venus Activation Journal walks you through reconnecting with your self-worth and rewriting your love story from the inside out. So be sure to grab it. The links are below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for listening. Gemini in the 8th house carries the imprint of someone who was taught that deep emotions must be understood before they can be felt. This placement often reveals a psyche split between the craving for closeness and the compulsion to stay in control. The 8th house governs intimacy, transformation, loss, and psychological fusion. Yet, Gemini, ruled by Mercury, approaches these themes through language, logic, and mental gymnastics. This can create a subtle but powerful fragmentation within you. One self that intellectually analyzes pain, trauma, or desire, and another self that silently holds the emotional weight without a name or outlet. You may have learned to survive chaos or loss by detaching from your body and retreating into the mind, telling yourself stories that helped you make sense of the chaos, even if they kept you emotionally frozen. This is the placement of the intellectual survivor, the emotional code switcher, and the one who jokes about pain instead of processing it. But you're not here to keep performing resilience. You're here to transmute it. Healing comes when you stop dissecting your wounds and start feeling them. When you stop narrating your pain like an outsider and instead become the witness who's willing to be in it, to grieve, to long, to let go, and to trust that transformation doesn't always come with clear instructions. Gemini in the 8th can mask vulnerability with intellect, creating patterns that seem emotionally available, but never fully surrender. So your blocks with this placement can show up in a few different ways. One of them being where intimacy becomes a thought experiment. So you might find yourself asking why you feel things rather than feeling them. Emotional safety gets filtered through logic, leaving you stuck in mental loops when trust asks for embodiment. Another block is emotional compartmentalization. There may be a public you and a private you. The more vulnerable or taboo your emotions, the more likely they are locked away in a mental file labeled too much. Another block is talking around the pain. So you may intellectualize your trauma instead of moving through it. It's easier to explain or teach your wounds than it is to sit with them honestly. Another is unspoken fear of powerlessness. Deep down, intimacy might trigger fears of control, betrayal, or being fully seen. So you maintain just enough distance using wit, banter, or mystery to stay emotionally safe. This placement can hide behind high-functioning patterns that look composed, capable, or insightful, but underneath, there's often a fear of dissolving into the depth of your own emotions. So this can manifest where you crave deep connection, but keep conversations light. You want to be seen, but feel vulnerable when the conversation stops being clever and starts being raw. Another way is you hide your pain in plain sight. So you may be the one everyone turns to for advice, never realizing you're emotionally exhausted from holding your own grief without release. Another way this can show up is your relationships can feel emotionally one-sided. So you might attract partners who overshare while you undershare, keeping emotional control by staying in the role of listener or analyzer. You may also experience emotional processing as overwhelm. So when things get intense, your default may be to detach, distract, or rationalize, leaving emotional tension unprocessed in your body. You are not here to solve your pain. You're here to integrate it, to stop talking around your emotions and start speaking from them. Your healing journey is about learning that real power comes from being willing to feel, even when there's no clear answer. The first step to achieving this is to give language to what you've avoided feeling. Write a letter from the part of you that felt powerless, betrayed, or emotionally abandoned. Don't censor it. Let the pain narrate itself before you explain it away. Next is to practice embodied expression. Instead of processing emotions only in your mind, move them through your body. Cry, shake, breathe, make sound. Let your nervous system participate in the release. Next is to reframe vulnerability as power. You don't need to understand the wound before it's worthy of expression. Practice sharing emotions even when they feel incomplete or messy. Let your loved ones witness your becoming, not just your clarity. Next is to stop investigating. Start integrating. Healing isn't about finding the right theory. It's about feeling the truth that lives underneath it. When pain arises, ask, where do I feel this in my body? Before asking, why do I feel this? Next is to let go of the performance of strength. You don't have to be the one with the answers. Start giving yourself permission to be held. Let someone love the version of you that isn't figured out yet. And finally, speak the taboo truth. What have you been afraid to say out loud? Whether it's grief, shame, or desire, give it a voice. Liberation begins where language returns to what's been silenced. A great affirmation for your Gemini-ruled 8th house is, I no longer split myself into stories and silence. I am safe to feel deeply, speak truthfully, and trust the transformation my soul came here to live. Let's make this a chart therapy session and share your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, hit that like button, send this to someone who needs it, and subscribe for more star-powered clarity. And you don't have to keep guessing who you are. My As Above, So Within guided journal helps you get real about what you want and what you're here for. So be sure to grab it below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for listening. Gemini in the ninth house brings the mind of a seeker, but not just any seeker. This is the philosopher, trickster, the soul that questions everything, tries on belief systems like outfits, and never stops reaching for the next idea that might make life feel more meaningful. But with this placement, the journey for truth is rarely straightforward. It's scattered, layered, and full of contradictions that pull you in multiple directions at once. The ninth house governs higher truth, faith, philosophy, expansion, and long-term purpose. But Gemini operates through contrast and curiosity, not certainty. So instead of devotion, this placement brings diversification. Instead of dogma, it invites debate. And instead of planting roots in one big truth, you may find yourself constantly hovering between many. An intellectual shapeshifter who knows how to say the right thing in any room, but secretly wonders, what do I actually believe? This can reflect a deeper fragmentation of spiritual identity. You may have been taught to follow one rigid path or none at all. You may have learned to keep your spiritual thoughts private, afraid they be seen as too much or not enough. But underneath the clever commentary is a soul who deeply longs for belief, not just in ideas, but in yourself. Healing comes when you stop trying to make sense of the infinite and instead allow yourself to belong to a truth that lives beyond words. This placement can create a fragmented belief system where spiritual or philosophical truth is constantly changing, unstable, or performative. One of the blocks of this placement is where belief becomes an identity costume. You might shift your worldview depending on who you're around. Spiritual language, personal development buzzwords, or religious ideologies can become masks instead of mirrors. Another block is a fear of choosing one path. Committing to one philosophy, practice, or direction may feel like giving up freedom. So you may stay in the safe space of theory and avoid grounding your truth. Another is endless learning, no integration. So you may consume books, podcasts, courses, but resist stillness, embodiment, and silence. Wisdom becomes intellectualized instead of lived. Another block is avoidance of soul-level faith. Deep down, you may fear what it means to fully believe. So you overanalyze the mystical or mock the magical, to protect yourself from disappointment. Gemini in the ninth creates a mind that's always wondering, even when the soul is trying to land. It's easy to chase shiny insights, but harder to stay long enough to embody them. So this can manifest where you feel more spiritually smart than spiritually safe. You can explain the chakras, the signs, the cycles, but struggle to trust your own intuition or make peace with not knowing. You may find that your growth feels scattered, not sacred. So 1 week you're into human design, the next it's Buddhism, then astrology, then neuroscience. You love it all, but feel like a stranger to your own core beliefs. You may find that you avoid putting your wisdom into the world. So you might hold back from sharing your truth publicly, worried it's not complete yet, or that you'll outgrow it and feel like a fraud. You may also feel like a spiritual outsider. So whether you were raised with too much dogma or not at all, you often feel like you're too skeptical for spiritual circles and too spiritual for academic ones. You're not here to know everything. You are here to trust something. Gemini in the ninth house teaches that true wisdom isn't found in perfect logic. It's found in lived resonance, in what feels right deep in your body, even if it contradicts what makes sense on paper. The first step to achieving this is to choose a belief to embody, not just study. Pick one practice, one value, or one truth that feels alive for you right now. Don't wait for it to be perfect. Live it. Let your nervous system integrate what your mind already knows. Next is to notice when curiosity becomes avoidance. Are you researching again because you're inspired or because you're afraid to start? Gently shift from learning mode into living mode. Next is to reclaim the truth you were taught to dismiss. What spiritual, cultural, or ancestral wisdom did you once resonate with, but were told was silly, wrong, or unrealistic? You are allowed to pick it back up, this time on your own terms. Next is to redefine faith as trust in your inner voice. Faith isn't always belief in a higher power. Sometimes it's belief in your ability to recognize truth when you feel it. Practice discerning resonance over reason. Next is to stop explaining, start experiencing. Instead of needing to articulate why something matters, just let it matter. You don't have to convince others. Let your embodiment speak louder than your arguments. And finally, give yourself permission to believe incomplete things. You don't need a fully developed philosophy to be valid. Your truth can be evolving. It's still yours. Honor it. A great affirmation for your Gemini-ruled ninth house is, I do not need to explain what I believe in order to trust it. My truth is evolving, embodied, and enough. I am safe to grow, to question, and to believe. The floor is yours. What part of this video spoke straight to your soul? Be sure to tell me below. And of course, your 3-second ritual. Like, share, and subscribe to keep this energy coming your way. And if you're ready to stop second-guessing yourself, my higher self activation will guide you into the confidence and clarity of your truest self. The links are waiting for you below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for listening. Gemini in the 10th house creates a public identity built on adaptability, intellect, and articulation. You know how to speak the language of success. You know how to become who the world needs you to be. But behind the polished presence and strategic networking lies a deeper fragmentation between who you are and who you feel expected to perform. This placement often reflects early programming that taught you your value came from what you could say, explain, or achieve in front of others. You may have been praised for being articulate, witty, high-achieving, or well-spoken. And somewhere along the way, you internalize the idea that success means staying likable, flexible, and impressive. But beneath that polished surface is often a hidden fear. What if I stop performing and they see I'm still figuring it out? Gemini in the 10th is here to evolve your definition of authority. Your path isn't about proving how much you know. It's about becoming someone whose presence carries truth. Someone who doesn't just speak success, but embodies it. This placement calls you to stop scattering your gifts across roles, titles, and personas and start integrating your truth into your public impact. Because Gemini energy thrives on variety, this placement can make you feel split between multiple ambitions, roles, or identities, never fully settling into one path. Some common blocks with this placement is career identity fragmentation. You might feel pulled between many roles: coach, teacher, creator, speaker, healer, but afraid to choose. So you stay busy, but unclear. Another block is performative professionalism. You speak with confidence, but inside you're constantly editing, filtering, or adapting your message to maintain approval. Another is imposter syndrome disguised as versatility. You downplay your authority with disclaimers like, I'm still figuring it out, or I do a little bit of everything. It feels safer than claiming your space. Another block is overworking to avoid insecurity. Your productivity becomes a mask. When you feel unsure of your worth, you intellectualize or busy yourself into burnout. This energy doesn't always scream career crisis. Sometimes it whispers in the background of your daily grind, subtly shaping how you show up and how you hide. You might notice that you are hyper aware of how you come across. You instinctively read the room and adjust. It's easy to lose touch with your own voice in the process. You may also notice that your career path is filled with detours and pivots. You've tried multiple jobs, brands, or businesses, and even when they succeed, you secretly wonder if you're on the right path. You may feel pressure to sound polished and on. So whether it's social media, speaking gigs, or client calls, you feel like your public voice has to be smart, snappy, or insightful, even when you're exhausted. You may also find that you constantly reinvent your message. You may rebrand often or shift your niche repeatedly. Not because you're lost, but because you're still learning to trust that one clear voice inside of you. Gemini in the 10th asks you to evolve from chameleon to channel. You're not here to be everything to everyone. You're here to speak a truth that's been earned through integration. That means your career must begin to reflect your soul, not just your skill set. The first step to achieving this is to pick a message, even if it evolves. You don't need a perfect elevator pitch. You just need a message that feels alive right now. Claim it. Speak it. You can always refine it later, but not if you keep waiting to sound ready. Next is to build a career around integration, not impression. What part of you has been left out of your public image? Is it the mystical side, the emotional side, the unsure side? Start weaving that part into your professional presence. Next is to release the fear of being too much and not enough. Gemini energy often fears being overexposed and underqualified at the same time. But you are allowed to take up space even if your voice shakes. Your path is valid, even in progress. Next is to shift from productivity to purpose. Stop filling your calendar to prove your worth. Create sacred space to tune into what actually wants to come through you, not just what sells. Next is to let people witness your becoming. You don't need to wait until you have it all figured out. Share from the middle. Speak from where you're growing. Authenticity will magnetize more than perfection ever could. And finally, trust that your truth is your platform. The clearest careers are built on lived wisdom. Your story, your voice, your contradictions, they are not liabilities. They're leadership. A great affirmation for your Gemini-ruled 10th house is, I no longer perform success. I define it. My voice is worthy. My truth is evolving. And my path is mine to create. Okay, I've shared the tea. Now it's your turn. What resonated? Comment below. And if your chart's been nodding along, hit like, share the love, and subscribe so we can do this again. And your chart is a mirror, and my As Above, So Within guided journal helps you look into it deeply. With over 100 prompts, this 88-page journal will help you uncover what you want, what you're here for, and who you're becoming. You can check it out below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for listening. Gemini in the 11th house is the social shapeshifter. You are built to network, connect, and communicate across diverse spaces. You naturally move between friend groups, niches, and social layers with ease. You know how to read the room, shift your tone, and speak the language of the crowd. But underneath that versatility is a deeper question. Where do I actually belong? And who truly knows the real me? This placement often reflects a childhood where connection was earned through mental agility. You may have learned that being interesting, clever, helpful, or entertaining gains you social safety. So now in adult life, you may still be performing versions of yourself depending on who you're with, never fully anchoring into a singular rooted identity and community. Gemini in the 11th isn't just about friends. It's about the narratives that shape your belonging. This placement asks you to reclaim your voice within the collective and stop outsourcing your truth to the opinions, agendas, or feedback loops of others. You're here to bring innovative ideas into the world, not just echo the voices around you. And that means letting go of the need to mentally earn your place. Because this house governs friendships, community, vision, and the future, this placement often manifests in fragmented social identities and an ever-changing sense of purpose. One of the challenges of this placement is adapting to fit every friend group. So you may feel like a social chameleon, changing how you show up to match the vibe, while quietly wondering where the real you is in all of it. Another challenge is the fear of being too much or not smart enough. So you may keep your ideas in draft mode, afraid of sounding naive or not having all the data. So you may stay stuck researching instead of creating. You may also have confusion about your long-term vision. Your future goals may shift constantly. You have lots of good ideas, but struggle to choose a clear direction or trust your path. Another block is validation seeking through performance. So you may habitually post, speak, share, or join new groups, not from alignment, but from a subconscious need to be seen, liked, or valued. This split between self and society doesn't always look like people-pleasing. Sometimes it looks like chronic indecision or constant reinvention. So you might notice that you speak differently around different groups. Not because you're fake, but because you've learned how to blend. Still, you may leave social settings feeling unseen or mentally exhausted. You might also notice that you're always figuring out what your mission is. You get excited about an idea, then a week later, you doubt it. You're constantly reevaluating what you're meant to do. You may also struggle to fully receive support. You love helping others, offering insights, sharing tools. But when it's your turn to be vulnerable or guided, you deflect or deflate. You may also find that you keep friendships surface level. So you connect with many people, but few get access to your inner world. You may fear being misunderstood if you reveal your full truth. This placement is here to teach you. You're not here to be the perfect messenger. You're here to be a conscious creator of community. When you stop performing knowledge and start embodying your values, your true tribe finds you. The first step to achieving this is to start with the truth you're afraid to share. What's the idea, vision, or belief that lives in your heart but never makes it to your Instagram feed or group chat? That's the seed of your real contribution. Next is to anchor your identity in purpose, not popularity. Your power doesn't come from who agrees with you. It comes from clarity. Get honest. Are you following your vision or someone else's algorithm? Next is to take up space in conversations. Stop defaulting to the role of listener, note taker, or supporter. Let people see your messy thoughts in real time. Speak before you're certain. Next is to let friendships grow past the performance. Test your relationships by showing more of yourself, the awkward, quiet, unsure parts. True community doesn't need a curated version of you. Next is to write your own definition of success. The collective can't give you your dream. You have to define it. Create a vision that excites your soul, not just your intellect. And finally, give yourself permission to evolve publicly. Your ideas will change. Your voice will shift. Your mission may pivot again and again. Let the world witness it. Let yourself become in public. A great affirmation for your Gemini-ruled 11th house is, I no longer trade connection for performance. I belong to myself first, and from that wholeness, I call in aligned community. Was this a mirror moment for you? Be sure to let me know what came up in the comments below. And be sure to give this video a thumbs up, share it with your day ones, and subscribe so the universe keeps us synced. And if this resonated, imagine what we can do in a full session. Links to my guided journals, courses, and one-on-ones are below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for listening. Gemini in the 12th house can feel like your thoughts exist in a soundproof room, loud and chaotic inside, but invisible to everyone else. This placement often reflects a soul that grew up having to mentally process big emotional energies in secret. You may have learned early on that your ideas, curiosities, or even fears were too much or not allowed. So your mind became your private universe, brilliant, restless, and hard to fully access, even for yourself. This is the house of the unconscious mind. And with Gemini here, your psyche may be overstimulated but underintegrated. You pick up on everything: subtle emotional cues, tone shifts, psychic frequencies, spiritual downloads, but struggle to organize or express it clearly. You may intellectualize your intuition or drown your own voice in mental noise before it can speak clearly. But you didn't come here to silence your thoughts. You came to purify them, to sort through the cluttered attic of your subconscious and uncover the divine messages hiding in your mental fog. Gemini in the 12th invites you to turn your mind into a sacred channel, one that doesn't just collect information, but communes with higher wisdom. Because this is the house of the hidden self, Gemini here can create an energetic split between what you think and what you know deep down, but don't yet trust. Some common struggles with this placement is mental overactivity that causes spiritual burnout. You're constantly thinking, analyzing, interpreting, but your spirit feels tired. You may confuse intuition with anxiety or insight with overthinking. Another is difficulty expressing your inner world. You feel so much, but you struggle to articulate it. You may stay quiet in group settings or avoid sharing your deeper ideas for fear of being misunderstood. You may also find that you self-sabotage through mental loops. Your mind replays the past or imagines every possible future outcome. You may try to solve spiritual or emotional challenges through logic alone. You may also have a fear of being exposed or seen as irrational. So you may hide your spiritual beliefs, dreams, or psychic gifts, worried others will think you're scattered, unrealistic, or ungrounded. Because the 12th house is unconscious, this placement often expresses itself in ways you don't fully see until you stop, reflect, or are forced into stillness. So you might notice that you stay busy to avoid your inner voice. Podcasts, research, scrolling, reading. Your mind craves constant input. Silence can feel uncomfortable because it forces your emotions to the surface. You might also notice that you over-explain or under-express. You either talk too much about surface things or say nothing at all. It can be hard to find the middle ground where your truth feels safe to land. You may also find that your dreams are vivid, strange, or symbolic. You receive messages through dreams or synchronicities, but struggle to make sense of them. You might dismiss your intuitive hits as random. You may also find that you retreat when overwhelmed instead of asking for help. So when life gets heavy, you disappear. You intellectualize your pain rather than sharing it. And you may isolate instead of processing out loud. This placement asks you to stop hiding your wisdom behind overthinking and start trusting that the messiness of your mind can become medicine. You're here to translate the whispers of the universe into something real. The first step to achieving this is to practice sacred stream of consciousness writing. Every morning or evening, free write for 10-15 minutes without editing. Let the inner noise come out unfiltered. Clarity doesn't come before expression. It comes through it. Next is to meditate, not to silence, but to listen. Don't force your mind to shut up. Instead, become the witness. What's underneath the thought? What are your thoughts trying to protect you from? Next is to name your spiritual doublespeak. Write out the lies your mind tells when it's scared. Then counter them with the truths your spirit knows. Make it a daily practice. Next is to let your intuition speak in your native language. If you're a writer, write. If you love art, draw. If you feel pulled to music, play. Don't judge the medium. Your soul just wants a way out. Next is to reclaim your spiritual voice in private first. You don't have to share your mysticism, your channeling, or your downloads with the world right away. But do share them with yourself. Give your insights a sacred container. And finally, create rituals for mental clearing. Smudge your journal. Speak your dreams out loud. Use sound, incense, or mantra to reset the energy when thoughts feel heavy. Let your mind be a place your spirit loves to live. A great affirmation for your Gemini-ruled 12th house is, I honor the sacred language of my mind. I no longer hide my intuition behind logic. My thoughts are not a burden. They are a bridge to the divine. Be sure to let me know what part hit home for you in the comments below. And of course, if this lit you up, hit like, share it with your soul squad, and subscribe so you never miss the next download. And if you're ready to stop outsourcing your worth and finally come home to yourself, my Venus Activation Journal guides you through your Venus sign and house so you can rewire how you see and love yourself first. So be sure to check it out in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for listening.